Welcome to the YoggNation, the Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the YoggNation platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and this podcast focuses on bullying, self-awareness, and our inner spirit, inviting high-profile guests to share their experiences on these relevant topics. And today, my next guest embodies the spirit of overcoming adversity and becoming a success story in life. Ruben Gammage is the founder and CEO of Team 24 Community. A Louisiana native, he and his family were displaced by Hurricane Katrina back in 2006. Ruben then found his way to Phoenix, as this was the only place he had visited beforehand. He had worked 3 jobs to get back on his feet, and never wanting to see this happen to others, he founded Team 24 as a way to uplift the community, specifically serving the youth. Welcome to the podcast, Ruben.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my absolute honor and pleasure. So, Ruben, curious, you see the images and videos on the news of horrific devastations of any natural disaster, hurricanes especially. What was the experience like surviving Katrina?
Man, it was very humbling. I was one of the ones that was there on the roof, waving a flag, saying I need help. So, actually going through it, try not to get too emotional, but it was tough. My mom and my sister, they kind of got out before it happened.
Okay.
And they kept encouraging me. It was like, hey, come on, get out, get out, get out. For me, it was like, okay, we go through this all the time, so it's just another one. And when they decided to leave, I stayed back with me, my stepfather, and my little brother. And part of me wanted to say I regretted it, but also I think part of me going through it made me the person I am today.
Sure.
To really be able to appreciate life, look at life differently. And I think that's what really got me to where I'm at. It was scary.
How old are you?
I want to say I was like 19 or 20.
Oh, formidable years.
Yeah, and it was, I can still remember it like it was yesterday. And to be able to be in that, and like I said, it was, I remember doing the hurricane, like we're there, and, my stepdad was like, hey, man, you guys come get in the tub. And he put us in the tub. He put a mattress over top of us. And all you hear is wind ripping and bricks coming off the wall. We was like on the
second. And the mattress is there to protect you from
us,
objects.
Okay. Yes, from going, because the roof had caved in. And at that point, we was on the second story. So it was to the point where the water, with us being on the second story, the water was to our knees inside our second unit apartment. And like literally, like we're there, and when you look out the window, like I'm seeing dead bodies floating across the water, and at that time, my life is flashing between my eyes, like this is it, we're not, like I'm not gonna make it through this. So I was trying to be.
What emotions go through your mind when something like this happens?
Just it's over. Like it's like I know I'm not getting out of this, and it was just, I don't know. I was trying to be strong for my little brother at the time, because he was maybe like 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah.
And it was just, me praying, me just asking God, like, just give me another chance. Like,
Sure.
I promise I'm not going to do anything wrong. I promise I'm not going to do anything bad. So just praying, just constantly on my knees, praying, just asking for another chance.
What type of help did you receive?
Oh, man, it was really rough, man, because, after all of that happened, basically, and I'll give you the short version. So finally, when the National Guards came, this was like 3 or 4 days after, we were still stuck. I was there for 6 days. No water, no electricity, no anything. But when we got saved by the National Guards, they kind of came in. I had a backpack on with my ID, birth certificate, and everything. So when they came down to get us off the roof.
So you were prepared. That's his maybe protocol.
Yeah, I was prepared. But when the National Guards came, they dropped down the cord. And when they came, he was like, you can't take anything because we have so much weight of other people. I was like, this is all I have to my name. Like,
it's your identity.
That's my, like, they was like, no, we can't. I was like, yeah. So as they strapped me up and they yanked it for us to pull us up, he cut my backpack. And as he was pulling me up, he cut my backpack, and I was my pictures, my ID, like anything else for me, everything else was 20 feet underwater. So at that point, when he picked me up, they took us to like a high level bridge, and they had about 100 buses. And they were just like, just get on the bus. I'm like, where are we going? They was like, get on the bus. We're escorting you guys out. So the first bus I was on, I remember I fell asleep. I was in San Antonio, Texas. And when they got off, they had like a lot of tents and stuff for us to sit.
You were with your family?
No, we separated. When they put us up there, it was me, my stepdad, and my little brother. But when we got there, they separated us. It was like everybody just get on buses. So at that point, I'm like 19-some years old, and I'm in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah.
And they had like, FEMA had a hub. And when you go there to the hub, it was like, hey, sign this paperwork and try to find your family. And then like you get put in this system, and then it was like, if you don't want to be here, we got buses that come. And they had buses that was coming like every 3 to 5 hours. So I went and got on another bus, and then I ended up in Houston. And then I go there again, I'm in the hub, no money, no nothing. Just a kid, 19 years old, nothing to his name, and just I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then finally, I seen some of my family from a thing in the hub for FEMA, and I seen something that somebody marked as my last name, Gammage, was in Beaumont, Texas.
Okay.
So I hopped on another bus to go to Beaumont, Texas. And then that's when I got back reunited with my mom and my sisters.
Okay. So that's a good story, but harrowing, to say the least.
Yes, it was tough. So, fast forwarding a little bit, I was there. It was in the Coliseum in Beaumont. It was, 1,500 to 2,000 people in there. We just had cots. They had bathrooms where it was a bunch of curtains that split it. And we had Salvation Army. We had like a lot of nonprofits there. And they was just, you would come in and you walk in and they would just like give you shirts, clothes, water, shoes, or whatever. And that's how we had to live for about 2-3 weeks. So if it wasn't for those nonprofits at the time that was there to give me, food, clothes, shoes, toiletries, it was like we wouldn't have anything.
Is that the driving force behind creating Team 24?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Yes. So, basically what happened at that point, we had churches and stuff came down, and they was, ministering to me and stuff like that. And they were just like, what's your next step? It's like, man, I don't know. It was like, do you want to stay here? I said, listen, the only other place I've ever been to was Arizona, because I came out here for a football recruitment trip.
Okay.
And then it was like, if you had a chance to go to Arizona, would you go back? I said, yes, that's the only place I knew. I was there for a few months.
Sure.
And then the church was like, okay, well, we'll buy you a ticket to get back to Arizona, and we'll connect you with some people. So when they brought the ticket, and the people they connected me with was some people that was at the Coliseum on 19th Avenue.
Yeah.
So I came here, went to the Coliseum, and I was there for about a week.
Okay.
And then they had churches and stuff coming in, prophesizing to us, talking to us. And then I got connected with pilgrims.
How do you keep the faith, though? Given the trauma.
I've never...
That's the inner spirit, right? That is your inner spirit. That was your self-awareness that got you through these times.
I didn't, at that point, honestly, a lot of people may be like, what is he talking about? I did not pray so much during that time.
Yeah.
And at that time, like, I wasn't a really spiritual person at that time. But then afterwards, I was like, who got me through this?
Yeah.
Why wasn't I one of those ones that couldn't get out? Like, what is my purpose? Like, why? I've seen a lot of, unfortunately, bodies left back, and I'm like, why wasn't that me? So it really made me start rethinking what was my purpose in life, like what was my calling. And that's what really made me start thinking differently and figuring out how to really change my thought process.
Sure.
To appreciate life differently. And now that I got a second chance, what I'm going to do with it.
Wow. I don't have a follow-up. What you just shared is so harrowing for me. It's not to say it's chills down my spine, but I'm definitely getting the goosebumps. Again, I think we all saw images back then of just the utter devastation, and how it lasted for so many, I'd say probably weeks or months.
Yeah, it was rough. And I think the hardest part for me was, once I got out here, I was really, by me not being close to New Orleans at that time, and FEMA and stuff was looking for people to help. By me being way on the West Coast, it was much more of a struggle for me.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't physically there to go into the trailers for FEMA. I wasn't physically there. And then it became really, it started playing a lot on my mental, because at that point, like, people was looking at me, calling me a refugee. I didn't really know what that was at the time. And it was just like, you start hearing
own
people,
citizens.
Yeah, and people was looking at me like I was like some kind of basket case. Was like, oh, nothing's wrong with them. They're just trying to steal money from the government. And
oh dear,
it was just like I for a while I went through a lot of tough in a mental space, and I'm like, dude, like, do you guys understand like what I went through?
Right.
And for now, you guys to look at me like I'm some kind of charity case, like I'm trying to beat the system. It was rough, and especially with me not having family here to go through that with me.
Right.
Yeah, it really messed with my mental a lot.
How does that translate into what you're doing, the good work that you're doing at Team 24? I mean, you have this DNA that you have in you, but I'm curious, and correct me if I'm wrong, Team 24 provides resources to help uplift the local community, again, the youth, around football mentorship, essential life skills, and financial literacy. So I'd like to double click on the mentoring part and the football part, as well as financial literacy. So first question, you've mentored, have mentored, continue to mentor young men going through, I guess, football as a way of life. But some of these individuals come from broken homes. What do their eyes reveal about themselves?
I think they don't have a clue. They really don't have a clue on, and what I mean by that is life, right? And what's the purpose of life? And it made me really take a turn, because I started seeing myself in a lot of these young kids. And it was very touching, because since I've been doing this, can I tell a quick story?
Please.
So I had a gentleman that I was, working with. I was working at the school, coaching football and stuff like that. And he was from a mixed family, and he was going through a lot. And I remember one day he reached out to me and was like, he was texting me, was like, Coach, like, hey, like, I need to talk to you. Like, I think I'm gonna do something. Like I'm frustrated. I don't know how to express it.
Sure.
And I was like, man, just calm down. Like, it's gonna be okay. Coach, I got to take care of something. And he was like, Coach. I was like, all right, sir, I'll call you tomorrow and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, when I woke up the next morning, I'm getting texts from everybody. He is in jail. He over downtown Phoenix. He murdered someone, went into a hotel and murdered someone point blank range.
Oh my goodness.
And that really took me out. It really did. And I felt like for a minute, I was like, I took it personal, like it was my fault, because this kid cried out for me, right? And sorry.
Take your time.
He really reached out to me, and it was like, if I would have stepped up and been available for him,
yeah,
that probably wouldn't happen. Like, I probably could have saved that person's life that it happened to. And it just, at that point, I was like, man, my purpose got to be bigger. It
Sure.
has to be, And then I had another kiddo, that I used to work with and coach. And then he was like, he looked at me and was like, Coach, are you a drug dealer? I was like, what? He's like, Coach, you drive a nice car. Like, you don't play in the league, but if you, like, how do you do it? He's like, sir, I'm a business owner. Business owners, like, there's no way you can make that kind of money, like, being a business owner. Who said this? It was one of my kids, one of my football players. And then I asked him, I was like, no. I was like, so, if you don't make it to the league, I said, like, what's your backup plan?
Right.
Well, Coach, it doesn't matter, because no other jobs that can make the same kind of money that professional athletes make. I was like, what is your, So that's what I mean when I say they have no clue. So then I'm like, okay, that's what made me really start thinking about the financial literacy aspect of what we do.
Yes.
And being able to really teach them and show them like, hey, it is other professions, it is other avenues that you can take that can also be considered success in life.
Right.
So it was just everything that I do now.
And that doesn't happen in schools. They don't teach money lessons.
They don't.
And
that's a part of my problem as well, that I'm trying to also network with schools, with Team 24 community. And that's when I say building community relations, building partnerships, is one of the big things is the schools.
Right.
And figure out how we can support, if it's after school program, if it's books, if it's computers, like what can we do to help push that narrative, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff that we learn in school, once you graduate, is like you don't even utilize it. So we're not making it interesting enough for our young kids to want to go to school.
Yeah.
So that's why our dropout rate and things like that are so high right now.
And I guess, Ruben, just on these two examples, you talking about Katrina and mentoring these young people. I mean, I hate to say this, but I wish the country can do a better job at prioritizing what's really important to help support one another. The citizens that pay their taxes, the citizens that don't cheat, they abide by the law, right? They're respectful, they're kind, they show empathy. I mean, that's, I think, hopefully the message that, for me, comes across in what you just shared. Because I think in the Indian community alone, I'm biased, but we live in a bubble, right? I mean, there is a certain point of time where our parents or relatives have come from the mother country. Yes, they've made a success story out of themselves, but that ability to give back, and not necessarily to give back in terms of money, but to actually see the faces, right, of these individuals that you're help supporting. And that's kind of something that I took away from the toy drive that I had an opportunity to meet with you. I don't see it enough, right? And if I don't see it, I'm not going to put it as a priority to help others. Right. So I think with your story today, I mean, amongst, I think, all of the guests that I've had, I certainly think that yours brings it down to this humanitarian level. Besides, kindness and empathy, it's what are you doing to help someone else? Right. So God bless you for that.
No problem, man. It's for me, I learned it's all about having a platform.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, especially for the young kids, is I always think like, okay, why did this kid do this? Right. And when you start,
no fault of their own too, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
it's the circumstances that led them to
exactly,
do what they did.
And when I started,
the actions or the non-actions.
Oh, definitely. And when I started noticing that, I had kids that would ask me like, Coach, can I come stay at your house? And it's Christmas. It's Thanksgiving. And I'm like, well, hey, like, you should be at home right now. And it's like, no, Coach, I just want to stay at your house. And when you have kids on a birthday, on Christmas, on Thanksgiving, not wanting to be home, and I noticed when they're with me, it's like, yes, sir, no, sir, different things like that. But then when they go home, they're swearing at their parents, they're doing this. And I'm like, what is it? And I started realizing that what I instill and what I teach in them for a 24, 48-hour period, but when they leave and go into a different environment, if it's totally different, the rest of the week, the other 5 days a week, it's going to be hard for that kid to understand the difference.
Sure.
And then now that's when it gets into mental health, because now they're fighting with their self, right? And they don't know, okay, this is my mom.
They're fighting with themselves. What do you mean?
So it's more like where, as a young kid, it's like, okay, this is my mom, this is my dad. I know society says that I'm supposed to love them.
Right.
Right. But I have this guy over here that's not my relative. This is not my blood, but he's physically showing me his love. He's showing up to my parent-teacher conference. He's calling to check in on me. He's doing those different things for me, right?
Right.
But society's telling me just because this is blood and this is my mom and my dad, that I'm supposed to love them the same unconditionally, right? So then you have to be that person to say, you know what? Even though you may want to call me dad, this is still your dad, and you still have to respect them, right? And now you're asking an 11, 12, 13-year-old to understand what you're saying when you make that statement.
this goes beyond just the traditional version of mental health or an anxiety, right?
Yes.
It's finding those role models.
Yes.
Outside the home.
Yes. And I wanted to be, I by far, I never want to consider myself a celebrity or anything like that, but I wanted to
You're
be
on the YoggNation podcast.
Right. One of my big things is like, I want to, be able to see the young kids when they see me to look at me and say, I look at Mr. Ruben or I look at Mr. Gammage or whatever, and, I aspire to be something like him, right?
Right.
And something meaningful, something where, that's for a greater or bigger cause, right? Outside of, and it's nothing against anybody that are celebrities or football. It's nothing against any of that, right? But my goal, like I said, is to be able to have young kids be able to walk around and understand that it's okay to be whatever I want to be. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says.
Yeah.
Because today with social media, that's a whole nother thing when people talk about the pressure what comes with the whole social media.
So how does Team 24 help?
Man, we help by being in the forefront, I think. Instead of us saying like, hey, let's reach out to the schools, let's reach out to the government, let's reach out to these different people, right? I want to be in the forefront. I want to go into the schools. I want to go and talk to the kids, right? So if they're having issues with financial literacy, right, we can sit here all day and talk about the president, the governor, whoever, about getting that in the schools. But what is the odds of that actually going to happen, right? So that's where I come in at.
Bureaucratic mess too.
Exactly. I ain't even going to go there. But my team job is to figure out, okay, instead of us sitting back waiting for somebody else to do it, how do we do it?
Yeah.
Right. And it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for my team. A lot of people look at me as the founder, but I just sit in the back and crunch some numbers. But at the end of the day, it's really my team that really spreads the message of what I feel and what I believe in.
Plus, I think there's also a component going back to the kids, and hopefully in a few years, if you haven't experienced it yet, is that concept of you pay it forward, right?
Yes.
What you were able to do to help mentor a young person, and if they've perhaps grown for a few more years, they then get to help another individual. Yeah. And
I can tell one good story.
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had one kiddo as well. He was in a broken home. It was his mom, his dad. His dad wound up going to jail for about 15 years. Mom was a single mom of 3. And when I met him, when I say he was a problem child, like everybody thought like he was going to be in jail by he was like 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah. And
it was a struggle. I stepped in. Mom's great. She was going above and beyond, but it was just one of those things where the environment where she lived at, the people around him was just a bad environment. So I kind of took him under my wing, started mentoring him, started working with him. And now, as of today, he's 23 years old.
Okay.
About 2 years ago, he came on. He worked for me now. Brought himself a condo in Scottsdale about 2 years ago.
Amazing.
He brought his own car. He has paid it off. And now he just recently moved to a 4-bedroom house. And now he's going back.
At 23?
At 23. And he's taking care of his mom and his 2 older brothers. And he's the youngest. Never been to jail. He graduated high school. He graduated community college. And he beat all of the odds in the statistics. So now he was actually at the Christmas event you was at.
Okay.
Every event we have, he comes back. And he was helping hand out the toys and everything because that was his neighborhood.
I'll be darned.
Yes, and 23 years old. And now he's taking care of his mom and his 2 older brothers.
I have to think that there's a component of what makes that person drive, that inner spirit that this young gentleman has.
And every time I asked him, I was like, man, like what clicked? He said, you, coach.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? He was like, just watching you and seeing how you do things, it makes me want more. And it shows me that I can do it. So then that also gave me a little bit of different thought process of, okay, you need to do more of doing because that's another method of how these young kids are paying attention and they can actually help them. So now that makes me, as you see me at the toy drives, the galas, me actually in it, like helping, unloading trucks, moving trucks, doing different things like that.
Well, gosh, There's a lot more that we can unpack and unravel on today's segment, but I guess I'm not going to say running out of time, but want to be respectful for the audience and the time that they've shown to take the time to listen to your story. I guess final question here, wrapping up, there are so many amazing community leaders like yourself in every city, big or small, whose mission, again, is to serve their communities. What do you want to say to your fellow leaders, or perhaps a volunteer with a specific message that they want to improve their schools or communities?
I feel like the biggest message I try to tell to a lot of my families, I consider it family, you know, we all live together, is collaborate, right? I feel like a lot of us have a lot of the same missions, a lot of the same goals. I'm one of those people that I'm very humble. I want to work with everybody, and I feel as though it starts with us. It starts with
your energy projects that too, by the way.
It starts with each individual person, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need all of this money. You don't need it starts with one individual person connecting with another individual person and coming together to make a difference.
The power of one.
The power of one, right? And you'll see it all the time. That's why in our name it says Team 24, right? Everything we do, it's a team. You will never see me take individual credit for anything. It's about a team. And what we want to do.
Not even a little bit?
No. No, right. I said only credit I take, is my team is executing out a vision and a story that I have.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But where we at is based off of a team.
Okay.
And I just want to accept everyone that have a similar mission, vision, or anything like that I spoke on, is to reach out and let's figure out how we can work together and branch out into the different things. And we're big on diversity as well. So we want to, it doesn't matter who it is. It's the Indian, it's the Latino, it's the whatever demographic 100%. It is.
I agree.
We want to tap in and work with everyone.
Yeah. Ruben, it was a blessing to have you. Godspeed. Good luck on serving the community. And for the citizens of YoggNation, again, this episode touched me in many different levels. Hope it touched you. If perhaps you find meaning or reflection of what Ruben had stated, please share this video, share the reels. Let's get this message across to a wider net community. For more information on Team 24, links will be provided. And again, God bless you and your team.
Thank you.
Yeah.